Hi, everybody. Welcome to our new episode. Today, we're going to be talking about going beyond positive thinking. So I'm here with Betty Albee, and we're going to start looking at this because on the one hand, you think, okay, I want to have positive thinking. That's the way I really ought to live. And let's think positively about this. And let's not be a Debbie Downer and all that kind of stuff. But really, all of that thinking and positive thinking and efforting and everything else is done on the human belief level, right, Betty?
Yep.
So when we're talking about going beyond positive thinking, what's the idea that we're getting at here?
Well, we're getting at being who you are, the power that you are, the presence that you are, rather than the thing you see in the mirror.
Yep. Okay, good. And so what would the science viewpoint of positive thinking actually be?
Would be coming from being, allowing that to speak for you rather than your opinion or your judgment or your human view.
Right. So if we look at it, what's a good way to start off in terms of really exploring scientific metaphysics and how to look at cause and source versus positive thinking?
Well, you have a quote from Margaret Laird that says, never identify I with person. So
Okay.
in science, I is always mind. It's never person.
Right.
So when I use the word I, who's speaking? 9 times out of 10, it's Betty. But if I stop using I, meaning Betty, it provokes, in my experience, the attention that it takes to not always speak as Betty.
Right.
And be a listening for the being that's present and the power of that being and the universal nature of that being, so that what gets said is far more strongly stated and far more accurate than Betty's judgment or opinion based on what she sees.
Okay, makes sense. What I want everybody to know is we're sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science, and you can check out more about us at scientificmetaphysics.org. And if you're enjoying this conversation, you can do a heart or a like and give us a thumbs up if that makes sense for you, if you're so called to do. And if you have any questions at all, please enter them in the comments and we will see them and we'll respond to them. There is a delay. So if you can do that, we can actually see them and respond. So we would welcome any and all participation as well. So in continuing on with this exploration, Margaret Laird in Christian Science Re-Explored also says the only hell lies in attempts to rigidify or mold truth, confine good to its concept, trying to snatch the good as it flows. So let's unpack that whole statement. What is she talking about when she says the only hell lies in attempts to rigidify or mold truth? When it comes to positive thinking, how does it relate to that phrase in that statement?
Well, if you're trying to rigidify, if you're trying to pour truth into a mold, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be productive. So she calls that state hell. The experience of being of no value is kind of hell, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So the value that you have, the value you bring to the table, if I can put it that way, is to let go of your personal view of yourself, let go of Betty, and realize that there is a universal intelligence functioning that has Betty present in the first place. So if I can be a listening for what that presence would say, it's going to be worlds more powerful than anything Betty would come up with.
Yeah, very good. And so molding truth is kind of like trying to have what I see, hear, feel, taste, touch, my circumstances conform to what my view of what I should have is. Is that?
believing that that is an actual experience rather than a point of view.
Okay, right. Okay, good.
It's in the mold.
So all of it is a point of view in my human living. Got it. So then when it says it's
the language that you understand. You understand that what you see, even if we're standing in the same spot,
yeah,
what you see and what I see are two different things.
yeah,
Very
different points of
individual.
view.
You come from who you see yourself to be. And I do the same thing. So there's no duplication of that view.
Yeah,
Your view is yours, mine is mine, and they're very distinct.
right.
Same thing's true when I be myself, when I recognize that there is being, infinite being, present, intelligent, perfect, whole, complete, present right now.
Right.
If I would just listen, do you know?
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to really have value in anything I have to offer, it would be in the listening to that intelligence and sharing whatever that is, rather than my personal point of view.
Right.
You know, and I can make that more concrete by saying, you know, it would be really easy to give my opinion about whether I liked the politics right now or not, and my view of President Trump one way or the other. But what is that? You know, that doesn't amount to a hill of beans in the face of recognizing that freedom, wholeness, intelligently functioning is not life-threatening, does not require violence, et cetera, et cetera. All of that comes out of seeing the universal nature of being itself, whole and harmonious, perfect. Coming from that, what I have is a wake-up call, looking like a commotion in my world.
Right. And would that go along with this second phrase that says if I was to take it and say the only hell lies in confining good to its concept and attempts to confine good, capital G, to its concept?
Yeah, and trying to snatch the good as it flows. In other words, oh, that's good. Oh, there's another good one. Oh, here's one.
Right.
Instead of seeing that the whole is good present.
No matter what it looks like, no matter what
Good
my
is
point of
another
view
word
is.
for God, the God idea.
Say that again.
Good is another word. She has capital G. The good that Margaret's talking about in her book is another word for the God idea.
Right.
So it's everywhere present, whole, perfect, complete. And coming from that, you have a much wider and a more inclusive perception of reality than you do if you come from your human point of view.
Right. Right. So then when we think about, positive thinking and the power of positive thinking, what is it that creates that power of positive thinking that everybody is believing in? So what in there kind of taps into some of the divinity or whatever, what is that? Or is it just purely in the realm of human living in the identity picture, two-legged animal realm?
Yeah, it's all a mix of all that, really. But what, if you had no science to work with, you would figure out just from your human experience that you feel better, you smile more, you enjoy life more if you do it positively than if you do it negatively.
Right.
So just from the human living point of view, it's probably a better belief than being negative all the time.
Right. And
you can actually share that in your world in an agreeable way.
Yeah.
People like to be smiled at and they like to smile. And negative stuff that is like Scrooge, bah humbug.
Right.
So in the belief of things, it's probably a healthier thing to be positive than it is to be negative. But science points out that there's a whole step beyond that.
Right.
You can go, and it's not personal, and it's more universally helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, very cool. Well, we've got another quote here, also from Margaret Laird's CSR, where she says, man is understanding, not understander-er. Understanding is conscious identity, man, making the invisible visible.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say man is understanding, not understander-er, what is she saying in that sentence? Just,
Well, you're not a thing that comprehends.
yeah, you're a verb.
Yeah, the understanding, the being of that is who you are.
Yes. Okay,
It's
clear.
not something you figure out
Yeah.
and therefore understand.
Oh,
You
got it.
come
Okay.
from being understanding.
All right. And then going on and looking at the next sentence, understanding is conscious identity, man, making the invisible visible.
Mm-hmm.
So unpack that a little bit. What does that say?
Well, it's the experience, humanly speaking, of you standing in being
Mm-hmm.
rather than in your personal ID label.
Right. And being is cause. It's the cause of everything that you see, hear, feel, taste, touch in your circumstances. Is that accurate?
Yeah, being itself being
Mm-hmm.
shows up looking like Kim, Betty.
Okay. And all of that.
Yeah.
And so when
like
we're
human being.
right. And so when it says conscious identity of man, making the invisible visible.
Yeah. The invisible is perfection present.
Mm-hmm.
You're making it far more visible when you're present as being, self-expressing, than if you're present with your opinion of how you think things are as Betty.
Right. Right. Because that would be a much more rigid view.
What's actually present, you see, is reality. What's
Right.
actually present is perfection. And
Mhm.
anything that brings that to the surface is making the invisible visible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. If you guys have any questions on any of this, please type that into the comments so that we can get some clarifications for you. Make sure that we cover all of it. So the next statement that we've got is also from Margaret Laird in Christian Science Re-Explored, where she says, and this is a verse from a modern song. So I couldn't do it in the verses because it just molds it all together. But you guys will recognize this. Then our befores no longer bind us as we drift upon the waters of the now, and our tomorrows cease to bind us,
Blind
us, because they never arrive as we make each day the first day of the rest of our lives.
Yeah, that's making the invisible visible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so very fun.
See, our befores, the past,
Mm-hmm.
we live in the past. Our befores no longer bind us as we drift upon the waters of now. Right now is all we ever have.
Yeah.
So and tomorrow cease to blind us because they never exist as we make each day.
Because they never arrive as we
They
make
never
each
arrive
day.
because we make each day the first day. This is all I have is right now, right now, right now. I don't have yesterday. I don't have tomorrow. I don't have 5 minutes from now. I have right now.
Yeah.
And that's all I ever have. And right now, I have all there is.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see it if I'm not paying attention to what's true. If I'm not aware, consciously aware, that reality, whole perfect, is present right now,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what my opinion about it is. It is
Right.
actually what's having me be.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I just had this thought, and the thought was this, and it's like, if I look at if somebody's clear about source and cause and all of that, joy is present and it manifests. And if I look at somebody who's consciously aware going through their living, then I could characterize that on the human belief level as, wow, they are positive. Nothing ever gets them down. Does that make sense? I mean, you could, right? So then I could see where somebody would say, well, wow, if you're more positive, then that would be a better way to be. Hence all of the stuff that we would make up about the power of positive thinking.
Yeah, and all we're saying is that's a great step, but there's more.
Right. And as you start to uncover that, you start to see that when you're really clear about who you are in source, then your clear joy is always present.
That's
Love
right.
is constitutional.
Yep.
And as you live that, you can look at your circumstances and say, well, maybe so, maybe not, and walk right on. And to people that may not understand that viewpoint, they'll say, they're always so positive. They're always unflappable.
You're out of sync with the picture is out of sync. I don't know what that is, but yes, what you're saying is right on.
Yeah. Okay. So then there's another statement from Science and Health. This is Mary Baker Eddy, where she says, mind, the one God, not that which is man, but the divine principle. Not that which is in man, but the divine principle or God, of whom man is the full and perfect expression.
Yeah.
So.
And she was defining mind.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted you to see that mind, which is a synonym for the God idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is nothing that's in man.
Yeah.
But it is the source of the expression that is man. You know, man is the expression of God's being.
Right.
So this is another way of saying it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. And then again, going further in the unity of good, consciousness is reflected in individual consciousness or man whose source is infinite mind.
Yep.
Infinite mind, infinitely manifesting, showing up the only way you can see it.
Yep.
And if you get with that idea, then you're not out about rearranging the furniture of your life.
You're not all about that.
Right. You know that's like, okay, fun. We can go have fun for a day and play there, but that's not fundamentally where cause lives.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not even. Yep. Okay. But you know, consciousness in the study of metaphysical science, consciousness is fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
Consciousness constitutes, consciousness constructs. There isn't anything existent outside of consciousness.
Right.
There is no outside of consciousness.
Yeah. So
then she points out that consciousness is the reflected presence that we call man.
Mm-hmm.
Constitutes and constructs and all the rest of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. It all comes from source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is where, you know, it's where we're standing when we say everything is mental.
Mm-hmm.
We live and move and have being mentally and always have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And in your book, Mind is the Athlete, accessing the resource within each of us that is causative, being willing to give up attachment to past-oriented concepts ruled by opinions, judgments, and considerations. So is it in order to access, is it in order to access the resource within each of us that is causative, equal, being willing to give up attachment, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
Okay. So accessing that resource, which is the causative resource, then requires being willing to give up your attachments, opinions, judgments, considerations.
Yep.
You got to be willing.
And if you're willing, then you're discovering the self with a capital S.
Mm-hmm.
You're discovering yourself as being.
Right. And that is the generative power that is always there, always available, always in operation.
Yep.
And capable of answering and solving every human problem.
Yep.
So if you can tap into that, then this whole positive thinking thing is neither here nor there. It might look like positive thinking, might look like whatever it looks like, but it's the tapping into that individual discovering of the self, capital S, that generative power, always available, capable of answering and solving every human problem.
Yes, and that's the step beyond positive thinking.
Yeah.
The generative power that is present, that solves the problem.
Right.
And that's like divine love, meeting every human need.
Yeah.
That's like truth is the authority in living.
Yeah.
It's the next step that gives you a little freedom from having to remind yourself to be positive.
Yeah. Right. Right. It's not any human efforting in that one.
Right.
Yeah. It's just being clear.
I had a couple of questions that led me to have that discussion this week, because if you don't see that, you tend to rest on the belief that positive thinking is all you ever need.
Mm-hmm.
And then you keep going along with this and that and the other difficulty and no answer in sight.
Right.
You try this, you try that, try the other thing. And it's really wonderful to recognize that you've taken the first step in your positive thinking. And when you let that thinking not be attached to the human picture of yourself, and say, wait a minute, there is intelligence functioning here, universal intelligence, universally available, intelligence that cannot be disputed, functioning perfectly. That will answer my problem.
Yeah.
And the problem becomes no concern.
Yep.
The answers show up.
Right.
Yep.
All right. And then our final quote of the evening of this episode is from Your Mind as the Athlete. The power of adversity is that it moves you into action.
Yep.
So that's the whole thing, is sometimes it's got to look pretty bad just to get you to move.
Yeah. And we do. We tend to put up and shut up for a long time. And then boom.
Yep.
And I can't stand it anymore. I'm not taking any more of this. On we go.
Right.
And it moves you into action. The other thing I like to remember with that particular thing is that if you really want to know what the symbol of life is, it's action.
Yeah.
Look at the thing in the hospital that shows whether you're alive or not. It's a thing that goes like this. And when it goes this way, nothing's happening.
Right.
You're dead on your feet there, whatever. But action identifies life, and life is another synonym for the God idea. But if you want to solve problems and move along in your living, you're going to be in action all the time.
Yeah.
And it's nice and far more restful to let some of that action be being yourself being. Discovering what that is.
Rather than the efforting. So there's the action that's just allowing and the showing up. And then there's all the efforting to try and have the picture conform to your concept, which just tires you out.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It reminds me of the book, excuse me, when you said it's all action, right? And it reminds me of the book, God is a Verb.
Yeah. Buckminster Fuller wrote that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So if there's any questions, please enter them now. Otherwise, that's all we've got for today.
I have one other thing I wanted to say, and that is, if anybody has a subject they would like us to discuss, send us a note, send us a little sentence about it. We'll consider it.
Right. And again, we're sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science, and you can go out to scientificmetaphysics.org, where you can purchase any of the books that we've quoted tonight, and also see the different materials that are available and the different programs that are available if you're interested in those. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. We will be here again next week at 7 p.m. Central and 5 p.m. Pacific. So until next time, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.